Welcome to another episode of Presbyterian and Reformed Texas. Welcome, folks. We have another episode of Presbyterian and Reformed Texas today. Today we have a wonderful group of young men serving our churches in the PCA. We have teaching elder Graham Clark, who is at Town North Presbyterian in Richardson. And we have Colton Brewer, the Director of Student Ministries at my own church, Trinity Presbyterian in Plano. How are you guys?
Doing well.
Doing good, Eric.
Well, we're glad you're with us today. So, Graham, you became a teaching elder. You were ordained back in February, not long after our past guest, Hamita Tommy. So, Town North was busy back in February.
It was.
Yeah. How's it been being a teaching elder, being on staff? How's it been for you?
Yeah, it's been nice. This is the first summer where I was not either studying for seminary classes or ordination. So and I still feel the anxiety a little bit of I should be studying or something. Of course I still am in ministry, but I can take a deep breath and go, you know what? That is behind me now. And so it's enjoyable to go to Presbytery and just be able to sit there, enjoy and participate. But it's been a huge blessing because right when I was going through ordination, I did it in two parts, and my wife was due, and it was getting very close to the due date when ordination was coming. And she said, if I start going into labor on this Friday night, we'll finish the ordination service and then come to the hospital right after. So kind of all that stuff happened in that year of ordination, baby being born, and then graduated seminary the summer before. But all of that, it was a lot of studying, but I'm really thankful that God got me through all of that and was with me. And it was fun at some points. It was also quite stressful, a lot of work, but it's been nice to just be focusing on ministry right now and not doing all of other things.
I'm sure. And Colton, I hope that's not intimidating for you, right? Because you're in the throes of trying to finish your studies at RTS now, right?
Yeah, at the Reformed Theological Seminary in Dallas, where I was classmates with Graham for a couple classes here and there. He was there well before me, so he's got to throw off the shackles of stress from school. So I've got a little bit longer, Lord willing. I'll be done May of 2025, and hopefully get to sit for ordination next fall. That's my hope. We'll see if I can handle that all. But yeah, it's been interesting. I've taken a bit of a long road getting there, but I'm enjoying it. Just very ready to be done with papers. Spent just ministering and hanging out with my wife and kids too.
Yep. Very good. And so, Colton, you said you've taken a kind of a different path.
Yep.
Let's start with you. I mean, tell us a little bit about your path to ministry. Where did you grow up in the church? And
yeah, I grew up in the church. Basically, I was a very young kid when we started. My parents didn't take me to church when I was really, really little, but around 5 or 6, my mom started taking us back. I made a profession of faith at 6 years old. Thankfully, did not go to the type of church where they make you wait till you're 18, SBC church, to get baptized. I was baptized at 6 years old. Thankfully, on the same day as my father. That's still a memory I cherish. Because my father, he was not happy that my mom was taking us back to church, but the Lord convicted him around the same time he did me. And so that's one of my favorite memories that I have, is being baptized the same day as my dad. Spent teenage years all through church, grew up in youth group, doing all the things, and I desired to go in ministry, and the Lord providentially hindered me for years. I was in the SBC trying to get on with a bunch of different churches. I was in New Mexico. That's where I grew up as a teen. I was a military brat, so we went where they told us to, but I stuck around a little bit. And as the Lord kept providentially hindering me, I just decided to work. And at some point that worked out well, because I came around to convictions on paedobaptism, that our children deserve the covenant sign. And so that's good I wasn't a Baptist pastor, because that could have made some very awkward discussions to happen. And so I've been in the PCA since 2018. Was originally a deacon at Christ the King. They used to be in DeSoto. They're in Midlothian now. Wasn't necessarily aiming towards pastoral ministry. I was very content serving Christ Church, and as moved on a couple years later, discussed pursuing seminary again. I actually attempted an MDiv once, 2013, 2014. It just didn't work out, and got a different master's instead. And, discussing with my pastor, Todd, at the time, felt a real strong desire to pursue pastoral ministry. So started up at RTS in 2021 and moved to Trinity in 2022, which was a fun change up, and been learning there ever since.
Yeah, you're coming right up on 2 years now, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's awesome. Well, it's been a blessing having you.
Well,
Graham, yeah. Graham, how about you? What's your story background look like?
Yep, I grew up in a Christian home in Wheaton, Illinois, which at one point had the most churches per capita. I grew up in
Crossway, right?
Yep, home of Crossway, just down the street. And then there's another publishing company also pretty close to there. But I grew up at college church, which was interesting.
Oh,
I
yeah.
did baptism. I got baptized there, but they also did dedications. And then I went to a Bible church after that. So yeah, I grew up in the church, youth group, but then kind of later high school, early college, parents really wanted I was going to church when I was at home, but at college I went to a Catholic school right outside DC, Marymount University in Virginia, and was going to church very infrequently. Then my senior year, I just felt really convicted by the Lord, as every Sunday over the summer I was going to church, and every conversation I had with my friend on Saturday night was somehow brought up in the sermon the next day. And the last Saturday, we didn't even talk about God. And I was talking about Bob Dylan for some reason. And that was an example in church. And that was just one of the few things where I just felt the Lord, that and talking to my other Christian friends just kept drawing me nearer and nearer. And at that point, until almost I graduated my senior year, I was going to go to law school. And so that was the plan. And a lot of things happened in between that. Got really involved with campus ministry. Went on some missions trips to Morocco for a month and then to Spain for almost 3 weeks right after I graduated. And during my last semester, I was going to a PCA church in Northern Virginia. It was actually an RTS about 5 minutes from my house.
Mm-hmm.
You see at that point. And I felt the Lord calling me down here to Texas, and I applied and got in. And then while I was out in Africa, my mom found me a roommate down here because I didn't know anybody in Texas. And, the first church I actually visited was Trinity, and I know they needed a youth pastor. I'm like, oh, this would be easy. Thankfully, I did not get hired in the sense that you don't just hire a guy who's fresh into seminary for a job.
Right.
And so then I bounced around to a few different PCA churches, and then Pastor Rogers at Town North, he was preaching in one of our chapels, and he was like the most humble guy I'd ever heard preach. And he was talking about John the Baptist, that, Christ must increase and I must decrease. And I was like, I want to work for that guy. So I contacted them and said, hey, can I intern here? And so I started there at the end of 2018 and then full-time in 2021 and been there since.
That's awesome. That is awesome. And Graham, your predecessor in working with the youth, Andrew Seiss, and Andrew Seiss, Andrew Simmons, AJ Swanson, were 3 youth guys, our collective churches, and then AJ was at Christ Community in Frisco. They were some of the moving forces behind an event, bringing the youth of the Presbytery together, an event that came to be known as Roctober. I don't know if that was the original name or not. I really don't remember. Do you know any of that origin story, Graham? Or
yeah, I know. I think they started calling it Roctober. I want to say the second or third time. I know it wasn't the first time. But yeah,
Right.
AJ and Andrew and were like the guys at Roctober for years and then AJ, Andrew, and then there's a few other guys. They all left pretty much the same time.
Right.
Years ago. So there was a few of us that then jumped in after that. But yeah,
There was a definite changing of the guard there.
Yes, it definitely was. And so that's been such a blessing to have Andrew there because, he was so involved with the retreats. I'm like, how'd you do this? How'd you do that? And yeah, when Noah and John jumped in, we're like, this is a good resource to have.
Right.
Mhm.
But AJ also was just the funniest guy and just such a, I don't know how to, like, early 2000s, like my growing up in youth group, I was like, he has that perfect personality for that. And so, yeah.
Yeah, he definitely was the mover and shaker, that the life of Roctober for a number of years.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So Roctober is right around the corner. This is what going to be the ninth
Yeah.
ninth incarnation of Roctober. That it's going to be in Denton again, right, at Camp Copass.
Yep.
Do you guys have an idea how many churches are participating this year?
I would guess somewhere between 9 and 12 would be my guess. Sound right?
That sounds about right. Yeah. We've tried to encourage everybody to come in, but I mean the tough thing is, for some of them it's if it's homecoming weekend, they might just decide not to or what have you. But we've had pretty robust groups, I think. What do we have, over 200 people last year, I think?
Yeah.
Good group.
Right. Oh, that's awesome. And for those unfamiliar with it, how can you give us a taste of what this Rocktober event looks like?
Yeah. So what we do is we get there Friday night around 7 p.m. So I even just say the things like to encourage other churches to come, or if you're kind of on the fence, is that one of the biggest things is, and I've even found this in my own small group with adults, is if you can spend more than 24 hours with people, all of your guards and all of, like, maybe your mask that you put up and everything just goes away. You have to be yourself. And that allows for just the kids and the leaders to really get to know each other on a deeper level. And so that starts when you get in the car or the van to drive up to Roctober. So we get there, 7 p.m. at night. We play a big group game. We have the first of 3 sermons, small group discussion time, singing and worship. And then they have a little bit of free time before they go to bed. And so there's just all this excitement. And then they, wake up the next day early. We got devotions. We have another sermon, same format for that. And then the afternoon, we play all these different tournament games. And so that's a lot of fun too, for the kids to play in the games and compete, but also for a lot of the kids just watching, the others compete is a lot of fun as well. And there's other things for kids to do, like board games and mini golf and Gaga ball, which is one of my favorite things to do. Yeah. And then, we got pretty good food there. They got a little store that you can buy stuff. And at night we do another sermon, small group time. And then there's some kind of either like a lip sync battle or some kind of, mini skit.
Much to the chagrin of my students, we're doing away with the lip sync battle.
That is true.
We're gonna have a skit competition, which should be good fun.
Oh yeah.
So the historic lip sync battle is being retired this year. Is that what you're telling me? Yeah. Man, what fond memories.
Maybe cut that part out.
Yeah. Well, and I think one of the things that, and Graham was getting a point at this, we purposely put in our purpose statement for the whole retreat was being able to bring the students together for teaching, worship, and fellowship, and kind of focusing on our connectionalism that we have. We're all PCA churches, we're all connected in a very formal sense, but the students don't really get to see that very much. And so I think this has been something helpful for a lot of our students, especially with some of the smaller churches that we have. One in particular that I was able to encourage to come for the first time last year, they were able to be real encouraged by some of their students who haven't interacted a lot with other Christians their age within our tradition. And so that's been, I think, for at least our students at Trinity, and even just a lot of the other students I've talked with, has been a real blessing, is just getting that encouragement, being able to see that, well, it's not just, a bunch of odd kids showing up there, but it's normal kids who love Christ, want to follow after him, and honestly like dunking on people in basketball and other games too. There is something really nice about that, being able to do it, and the fact that we're all very, very close together in the metro.
No doubt. It's funny you mentioned that closeness, physically, geographically, and also that connectionalism. It is neat to see the kids that know each other outside of church come to see each other at Roctober. Like, wait a second, you're in the PCA too? I didn't know that. And whether it be through sports or school or whatever. And
Yeah, I think there's a really good balance too of, I know I've seen this with our kids, that there's a lot of time that just your church spends together growing, which I think is so important because whenever you do a retreat, the kids come back and they like have all these little inside jokes and different memories. And we just had this summer to camp out, like all this different conversation that we can have. And they're excited to come to youth group, but there's also a great balance of, like Colton was saying, hanging out with other kids that maybe they see at co-op or maybe they've never met before. But, being a smaller denomination too, it's like, oh, you're also a Presbyterian kid, and be able to spend time with them. So like, I love the balance that they have where you could still feel comfortable with your own group, but also get to meet other kids as well. And I think that's such a special thing that there's a great balance in that. There's nothing forced. It just is so natural that they're spending time together.
Yeah. And this is one night now, Friday night, and then it ends late Saturday night. So everybody would be back home Saturday night, can worship at their home churches on Sunday morning. Wasn't always this way, was it?
It was not, no. During COVID, we just had one day, and so we couldn't stay over. And then after that, we said, this actually worked out pretty well because what happened is we'd have one session Sunday morning and like the leaders, all the kids heads down, like just completely exhausted. So if any of the leaders are listening to this is perfect because you're still going to feel tired, but you get to go home, sleep in your own bed on Saturday night. It's quiet, smells great. And then you get to wake up and worship together with, your people at your church. And so, yeah, I love this format.
I do too.
I just felt like the 2 nights, everyone was just exhausted and it kind of diminished the value of the trip. But the one night, you kind of want them to be excited that, I wish there was another night. And so they want to be, coming back next year and have fond memories.
Yeah, no doubt. I think it's been a very positive change that COVID forced us into.
Yeah, I've really appreciated that. And actually getting to see some of the senior pastors who you don't always see come to youth events. I feel like I see a lot of them come out to Roctober, especially the ones whose churches are much closer to Denton. Just coming out, meeting the kids, not just seeing their groups, but seeing others. That's been a real encouragement. And on some hand, I'm sure that for them, it's good to be able to see their students enjoying this retreat, being able to be filled up and discipled, from the broader church. So that's good. I know that can be challenging for some of our more far afield churches in the Presbytery, but I'm sure we could find a way to accommodate them on the Lord's Day if need be, if they really want to come far for it.
No doubt. So those of you in Amarillo and Lubbock and Midland, come on down to Denton.
Oh, yeah.
Plenty of space for you.
Yep. Definitely come work with us on Sunday.
That's right. That is right. So, we're sitting here extolling the value in the youth in the Presbytery coming together. Do you think there'd be any value in the adults coming together at some point in being more intentional about us trying to know each other?
Yeah, again, like I said earlier, the whole 24 hours, if you could kind of mix in like a Presbytery meeting every once in a while that was a 2-day retreat, and just spend time, hanging out and doing fun things together where, I think sometimes even with youth retreats, right, that can be taken too far where it's like, let's just have fun, right? And that's, of course, that's not the main point, but there is something about that. I've just like, I know one example, even just like bowling with our senior pastor. I'm like, man, he's so cool. And I already knew he was cool, but that was just like fun to experience something outside of the norm. And, it's not just a business meeting, but there is. So I think that'd be a great idea if there was some kind of retreat, to do that. Maybe even during the week instead of like a Friday, Saturday, because most of them are preaching on Sundays.
Right. Yeah, it is interesting to think because I don't know of many churches that really look at and think about those things when planning events. I know this past, I want to say it was in the spring. I could be wrong, so forgive me to our brothers in the Houston area. But, Fred Greco's church, some other churches, their men's retreat, they had like 3 churches together for men's retreat. And, I know, Park Cities definitely has the size. They had bring in, notable speakers for different men's and women's events, and definitely has a intentional invitation to people to come. Hey, this is open, come to this. But, the rest of us in the mid-sized to smaller churches, do we ever really think about, hey, you know what, we could do something together, we could partner together, we're 10 miles apart, we could probably do more together than we could apart. And
So you're not just the leaders but also like the members, you're saying, as well?
Oh yeah,
that'd be great.
Colton, you gonna say something?
So Graham, is that going to be your first overture? Is overturing overnight Presbytery, camp out Presbytery?
Finally raised my hand.
There you go. No, I was going to say that I think the closest I've seen some kind of invitation like that, to his credit, our music director, Eric, invited, choirs from other churches to come and sing with our choir at a concert that we had. It's not exactly what y'all are looking at, but I think there's something really beautiful about bringing everybody together within the Presbytery, because we get members who are like, well, I'm not Presbyterian, I didn't grow up in this, why does it matter? Well, we're all connected, we're a part of the same body, the same expression of the body of Christ. And so I think there's something good to say, hey, we've bound ourselves together in covenant with this church is partnered with others, and we want to show the love to each other, and not just formally on paper and through giving, but also just informally through how we love each other's churches. So I'm looking forward, Graham, to your overtures for demanding these things to happen. I'm just a candidate, so I can do nothing at this point, but I'm looking forward to you doing that, Graham.
I think that's actually a good idea. I was thinking more about this, that, I think one thing that's special is that different churches and different leaders and members have different strengths and gifts.
Yep. Right.
And so there might be leaders in some church like, we're just not great at planning these kind of things or leading these kind of events. But other churches like, hey, we're actually pretty gifted at this. Let's work together. And that's how we could, benefit each other of doing that kind of stuff. I think that's actually a great idea.
I think there's a lot of value. And, one thing I've seen over the years is, people, you could say, hopping PCA churches. They go from one to the other because, there's been a staff change and they don't like the new pastor, they don't like the new music, whatever it might be. And there's a personal conflict, whatever. We're going to hop on to the next one. And in some respects, some might even say, well, I'm kind of fleeing or leaving a bad situation. Well, the reality is, right, we still are all connected. We're still in this relationship together as members within a church that's in the PCA. And I think it'd be good to just, drive home and help people to better understand what it means to be in fellowship with one another in the PCA, and even broader within NAPARC. Right, one of my goals with this podcast is to help us understand that our brothers in the OPC, in the ARP here in Texas, we are in fellowship with them as well. And obviously we have a fellowship with our broader evangelical community, but we have a very particular constitutional fellowship with other churches in the PCA and within NAPARC, and we should know them. We should know how to what that relationship means, and we're not lone rangers.
Absolutely.
Yeah, great.
Yeah. So I'm gonna do a little trivia here with you guys on Roctober, and I just got a couple questions, but I want to see what you guys know about Roctober.
Oh, Graham's going to win this easily.
Yeah. He probably has a little advantage on you, Colton, but I think you might be able to pull this off.
We'll see.
Yeah. All right. First question. And you guys, how do we want to do this? We want to first one to answer, or
you're in charge?
I know. I'm just trying to think. Let's just do the we'll just let the first one to answer here. All right. The T-shirt has been a valuable piece of swag that students come away from Roctober with every year. Generally, those have been very fondly thought of. But one T-shirt in particular really disappoints.
I know exactly the one.
Which one would that be?
Seth Miller designed this, formerly from Redeemer McKinney, I'm guessing. It was it the ordinary black T-shirt?
The
That
black
word
one.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
It just said ordinary on it. I heard
Yes.
that many of them were found in a local Goodwill quickly after.
I have heard that as well. And in fact, I will confess that I counted them this morning. I have four October, maybe have 5. No, it's 4. 4 October shirts hanging in my closet. I don't have one from 2021 when I only came on Saturday following a surgery I had. The other one I don't have in sequence is that ordinary shirt. Yes, just Seth, brother, I don't know what you were thinking, but you let us down.
Good thing Seth's a much better preacher than he is a shirt designer.
That is right.
I remember him asking, he's like, how does this look? I'm like, well, we don't have much time, so. Thankfully it was black. That was the only redeeming quality that I was.
That is very true. That is very true. Okay, so AJ Swanson, we mentioned, one of the key movers in the history of Roctober. He definitely had the biggest influence, like we said here, probably in the spirit of Roctober. His legacy lived on last year in Roctober. Can either of you tell me how? How did our guest speaker last year relate to AJ?
Ooh, was there a similar sports fandom?
No.
I don't know.
So Andrew Triolo, and AJ grew up together in Charlotte.
Oh, yes.
So, all right. You weren't paying attention, guys. Weren't paying attention. And Triolo, right, is the associate pastor at Westminster Pres in Bryan, Texas. So, very good. Okay. So, the one more question here. The shirt that was probably the most controversial shirt before Ordinary had this unique problem. Any remembrances of that?
I got 2. The orange T-shirt faded. Great T-shirt. That one faded.
Yep.
Was that it? Or is there?
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah, the orange sherbet.
Yep.
That the printing on it was so light you can barely read it. Right?
Kids love that shirt, and like I still have one. Someone wore it.
I do too.
Everyone's like, "This is amazing. We love it. Comfort colors," and then it just faded away after a few washes.
Yep.
I think the best one was actually the blue one, and I have 2 of them. I wasn't at that retreat, but we would do games for youth group. I'd get so sweaty, so I'd run in, and Andrew actually gave me an extra blue shirt to wear. So now I wear that one, though I was not at that one.
Yep.
I think my kids have leftovers of the blue ones from years ago, and I'm like, they're like, "Oh, did you go to that one?" I'm like, "No, we didn't." But there's leftovers at Trinity, so
that's right. That is right. That's too funny. Yeah. So the Roctober, one of the other takeaways besides a T-shirt, right, is the little program. And look at here, I've got actual 4 programs here that I got on my bookshelf, among other things. But there was at one time a Spotify playlist that the worship leaders put together. I don't know whatever happened. Does that still exist?
It does for the music group.
Okay.
So we were talking about the music, but I can ask if they want to. It's Parker Clemens at New St. Peter's. He does a good job, and so now I think he's taking over as I'm guessing he's like the youth director there now, because it's Noah Weirthorpe, who was the main guy of the retreat the last few years, moved to St. Louis. So I can ask him to set that up, because that'd be great. Yeah, because in the past we did have that, and we would play those at youth group to kind of get prepared for the retreat.
Right. Yeah, and in New St. Peter's, they've had a good history of helping to really lead the worship part in terms of the music at the Roctober events. They've done a really good job with that. And,
Yeah.
you know, the it's neat to see the churches that have been there year after year and see the kids grow. Um, see see the adult volunteers stay the same. See some of them change and get to know them. Um, all right, one more. I said that was the last question, but I do have one more question for y'all. The volleyball slash Newcomb sport, um, played on the sand volleyball court there at Camp Copass, um, has without a doubt probably been the most hotly contested event each year.
Maybe.
Well, okay.
I don't know. Basketball, when Seth was still here, between Graham and Seth, basketball was pretty contested.
On a
Yeah,
small scale, the actual competition, maybe basketball, but choosing between volleyball and Newcomb each year has
That's
been
true.
highly
yes,
yeah.
no doubt, no doubt. Well, what I was going to ask was, and Colton, you're probably at a disadvantage here again. I apologize, but yeah, I know he was there 2 years ago, but the referee that caused the most consternation in roughing the volleyball Newcomb events. Do you know who that would be?
I don't know. Because usually I'm bouncing around.
Yeah.
The 2 years ago?
Well,
just
and for a number of years, but I know he was not there last year. I know he was there 2 years before, but yeah, Jason Witzel, who formerly of Christ Community youth volunteer for a number of years, he, I'm sure many of the kids have plenty of stories. Now, Jason robbed them of their championship and their valued T-shirt, right?
Those valued plain T-shirts.
That's right.
It's a champion T-shirt.
Yeah,
it is.
This is champion. Or right, yeah.
Yeah. So, the event coming up again, Roctober 9 this year in Denton at Camp Copass. We're going to bring our youth groups. Their youth group at Trinity, Colton, right, is sixth grade through 12th grade. Yep. Graham, are you the similar at Town North?
We're 7th through 12th.
7th through 12th, okay. And I think most of our churches probably fluctuate the same way, 7 to 12, 6 to 12. And it's a wonderful experience. We're looking at probably 200 or so kids. The sign-up sheet will have a link to that in the show notes for everyone if you're interested. The dates, the Roctober again, are the 18th and 19th of October, which puts the sign up to get the valued T-shirt October 4th. And if you just want to attend and you're not worried about that T-shirt, well, then you have to sign up by October the 11th. But so you have a few weeks to consider. If anyone has a question that at a church that hasn't done this before, who's the best person to contact?
Yeah, you can put my email down in there.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd be a great person to contact, and then we're probably with Colton as well. And then, if we don't know, we can hit email and talk to the other guys. But I think I've done it for enough time now that I should know most of the questions, and if not, I'll pass it on.
That's awesome. And the weather hopefully will be good. It's usually a typical wonderful experience of 80-degree weather, and usually get a nice sunburn on Saturday because it was cool in the morning. And you think, oh, I'm not worried about the sun. And then by evening, you're nice and bright red.
Always get you.
Yep. But hopefully the weather will cooperate again as it usually does. And, so if I were to give you, I'll give each of you just, well, you know what? Actually, before I ask you that question, we've talked about October. We have not spoken about who is speaking this year. Why? What are they going to get to hear when they attend this year?
Well, that's going to be Reverend Andy Wood, who is at Trinity Fort Worth, or as I like to call it, Trinity West. I don't think they like that nickname. We're Trinity East, they're Trinity West, but
I
you know,
love
it's all good. So at Trinity Fort Worth, he's going to be teaching on biblical relationships, or no, excuse me, biblical friendship, not relationships.
Very good. Well, that's a very appropriate discussion for a retreat with the youth, and it's certainly a message that I think probably all youth need to hear, right? And probably most adults need to hear as well.
Yeah, and I think it's special because just talking to Andy for a little bit about how, you know, there's a bunch of different scenarios, right? You have kids who are either homeschooled, they're Christian schools or public schools, but they all share like the same things with, hey, when you're with your friends at youth group, how does that differ versus your friends at school?
That's
Or
right.
go to a Christian school like myself growing up. What are some challenges that you might have? Well, everybody's a Christian, so you can do whatever, right? Just little things like that of how do you address those different things? And I'm like, this is such a valuable lesson to teach on and to really, give them that. And like you said, adults, that would help as well. But this would be great for the kids to learn about that from a biblical perspective,
Right. Oh, that's wonderful. That's well said. So then where I was leading them, my question would have been, or is, this retreat and youth group in general, right? What would be your message to parents and students in particular, but their parents as well, right? That have been just on the fence about youth group. I mean, we I guess I'm probably the generation that is most stereotypical went through youth group, and you guys are a little bit younger, had to live through that reputation already. But certainly the generic youth minister stereotype, listening to Michael W. Smith's "Friend's a Friend Forever," and hey, I don't want to send my kid to that experience, right? What would you say to them?
Yeah, I mean, you kind of say like more like the cheesy youth group type of
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's like for me, it's such a special time, definitely for like youth leaders and volunteers to spend with their kids. You don't get this amount of time. I mean, the hours that you're getting at this retreat is, a lot of times more than you'll get through like a lot of a semester. It's this time that you can really spend with them, and you're building this relationship that I think is just so important to be able to speak into their lives, to gain their trust, and to really like show like, hey, I actually care in this scenario. And then they also get a great balance of great biblical teaching and then spending time with, fellow Christians that are in the Presbytery, a lot of fun events. And also one of the rules we have is like no cell phones. And in this day and age, that's even crazier than, when I was younger, and definitely when you guys were, you probably didn't have cell phones back then. But you know what I mean? It's just,
Hell, we had rocks, Graham.
Smoke signals.
But it's a time where you're disconnected from that, and that's so hard in today's age to get that for more than 10 minutes. And so to just be disconnected from all of that stuff and to spend time in fellowship and with the Lord, you just don't get that anywhere else. And so that's why I would encourage, like, this is a great opportunity for them to do that and to grow in their relationships there with one another and with the Lord.
Yeah. I would say on one hand, just the men that we have who are helping lead this, they're not your stereotype of what a youth pastor, a youth director, youth leader is. Graham, the other men that we have working on this are very serious about scripture, very serious about leading these students towards faithful walks with Christ. I had very well-meaning youth pastors in high school, and wasn't always the most serious things that happened. I think they were much better than what I saw from a lot of my friends' youth pastors, though, where it was all about silliness and fun and games. We've mentioned Seth a few times, but I remember I met with Seth not long after I started working at Trinity, and I was like, "Hey, like, is it okay if I just like teach just from the Bible?" And he's like, "Yeah, that's all I do. Why wouldn't you?" And I'm like, "Okay, good." I felt validated that I could be a biblical teacher, help our students walk through scripture and focus on that. And I'll just say the men that we have leading this, that's their focus. It's not, I mean, we have fun that weekend. And some of these guys are pretty athletic, and they can end up holding up well with the students and showing them who's boss. But even then, our focus is on helping the students grow, finding that time where they can spend with the Lord, and being able to, again, develop those relationships with people, whether that be with the adults at the church who will one day be their peers, that they're also walking as faithful Christians with, or with their peers right now, who they hopefully will go through a lot of galvanizing experiences with.
That's awesome. Thank you both. I mean, those both, I think, very valuable things that both of you said. So thank you for that. And I appreciate the heart that both of you have in ministering to the youth. And it's, you're right. We're called to disciple these young men and young women in their walk with Christ. It's not about having fun. Nothing wrong with having fun, but that's not the focus here.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate both of you and the time you've given us this afternoon, and we look forward again to seeing you both. And if anyone is listening to this who is planning on meeting in October, you can meet all three of us at Roctober. Roctober 9, Denton, Texas, at Camp Copass. It's October 18th and 19th. The link, again, will be in the show notes so you can sign up and register. Gentlemen, any last words?
We're excited to see everyone who's listening to be there. And again, if you have any questions, we'd love to answer those. And thank you, Eric, for having us on. It's been a blast, and excited to see everyone there.
Yeah, I am very thankful for both of you as well. Colton, any last words from you?
Not really. I think Graham summed it up well. But I appreciate, as I was talking to you about yesterday, Eric, I appreciate what you're doing with this. I see this as a audio version of a Presbytery paper. You're helping share what's going on here, and helping with that connectionalism that I
That's
think
right.
Parish. So
That's right.
I've kind of rabble roused you a little bit to continue with this. So I will admit to that. But I appreciate you doing this, taking that time.
You bet. Well, thank you both. And with that, listeners, we will bid adieu until we meet again here in 2 weeks. In the meantime, listen to this. Please share it with your friends, with your fellow members at church, with your fellow members with your friends throughout the state of Texas. If you know somebody who is going to be in Richardson traveling or be in Plano, shoot this episode to them so they can get to know Graham and Colton before they come visit. We actually had that experience recently at Trinity, didn't we, Colton?
We sure did. That's so wild to me that somebody's like, "Oh, I listened to your podcast, Eric. That's why I came to visit, passing through."
I know it's an awesome thing, and we'd love to hear more stories like that. And hope this episode brings kids to the Roctober event the same way that they heard about it here. So, All right, awesome. Well, I'll let you guys go, and Lord go with both of you as you seek to minister to our kids. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Eric.